few years ago, I came across Kiprono Kitony. He knows because he's here. I encouraged him to be part of the chamber because I saw the way the chamber was going. It had become a hostage of people who did not have the capacity to run a proper chamber of commerce. I am happy that today we have a chamber of commerce that we can say is fit for purpose and working with the government, with all the sectors, to project the right image of our country. I want to say congratulations to the chamber. You are doing a good job. Secondly, I agree with you 100% that the chamber can work with the government to organize the bottom. And what I have seen this morning is actually a testimony and a confirmation that indeed, with the chamber, we can leverage on your network to be able to organize the bottom of the pyramid, to get the many innovators, the many creators, the many entrepreneurs, the majority of the 4 million micro enterprises to get to a level where they can help us create jobs and they can help us create wealth. I have listened very carefully to Magdalene, to Trevor, who spoke earlier, to Eugene, who spoke earlier, and they present and they represent our future. The one asset that we have in Kenya, a very rare asset, is our human capital. We may not have gold, we may not have silver and all the other things, but we have the people of Kenya, and that is the asset that we have. And that is the asset that is going to turn around our nation. And I am happy that we are working together to sharpen, to model, and to shape the human capital that we have through training, through education. And I am very confident that going into the future, from all our learning institutions, training institutions, we should be able to build the human capital that is going to make the difference in our country. That is already it is making. That's one asset. The other asset, apart from sharpening that asset through education and training, we need to fund. And I am very happy that we are having a conversation and even listening to my great exporter here. The constraint that has been around our human capital and especially our micro and medium enterprises has been the concept of financing, affordable financing. I have listened to the banks who spoke to us here, great people from Equity to APSA to DTP here. I really want to persuade our financial institutions, yes, to be flexible in how they lend their finances, but also to consider the aspect of cost. What is the cost of that financing? I would have been very happy to hear Equity Bank say, we're going to lend to SMEs on a single-digit interest rate. And I really want to challenge our financial institutions with tremendous respect that it is possible and it is time that we inspired our micro and small enterprises by ensuring they have access to affordable credit. The government of Kenya is going to work with you as we fashion the Hustler Fund. I want to promise the country that the Hustler Fund is going to be on a single-digit interest rate. And progressively, for the smaller enterprises, we will begin with just a simple fee without interest, because we want to fire the bottom of the pyramid. That is where the engine of our economy is. The other item, listening to all these people, apart from finance, is technology. We must leverage on technology to be able to be efficient and effective. And that is why, if you see our manifesto, we talked largely about SMEs, because we know that's where the jewel is. And secondly, we talked about affordable finance. And thirdly, we talked about a superhighway, because technology, listening to Magdalene, I am very confident that employment is going to be ready and available if we can ensure that we spread technology, we have financing, and that is why we talked about the superhighway. The superhighway is supposed to do two things: to make sure that the country is connected, and I'm happy again to announce here that the real last mile in technology is the gadget. And already we are working with our telcos, our telecommunication sector, so that we can have a smartphone that is going to be less than 5,000 shillings. A smartphone that can do everything that you want. A smartphone that can make sure, today the cheapest smartphone is 10,000, maybe 15,000. We want to see whether we can get it to $30 or $40. And I want to promise the country that in the next 8 to 12 months, we will have the cheapest smartphone in Africa, manufactured in Kenya. And finally, the concept of the superhighway is to also make it cost-effective to trade on and to work on the digital space. And again, let me use this forum to say we have about 15% of government services on the digital platform. If you look at our manifesto, we said we are going to move 80% of all government services on the digital platform. Again, let me announce here that we are working on it, and by God's grace, between 6 and 12 months, we will have moved 90% of all government services onto the digital platform, and ensure that from the comfort of your home, you can work with the government. You can get your licenses, government service online, without having to travel to any office, without having to go to any park. And again, to use the digital platform to also collect our taxes. So, good people listening to each and every one of you here, the government of Kenya stands ready and available to work with you. And I have heard what my good brother here has said. I thought I have done a long introduction. Let me just say, answer your question.
Yes.
On the matter of climate change, and that's why we are saying technology is going to give us the opportunity to be able to deal with matters climate change. I'm going to encourage my brother from the Juakali that we are going to look at them, not just doing this, the tractor that uses renewable energy. We also want to see whether we can move all our border guys onto a clean energy platform there is absolutely no reason why we should not begin to walk the journey to e-mobility. All our vehicles, all our border guys should be on e-mobility. We should be able to convert all the borders we have so that they are electric and they can use renewable energy, solar, they can use wind energy to be able to charge, and we can progressively eliminate fossil fuels. And that is how the Juakali Texas is going to come on board.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Maybe I just go back to Mr. Kalomba. Maybe you can just explain briefly how the Juakali would be able to work with the sector of energy.
Thank you, Your Excellency. The Juakali has always been very ready from birth. And we know very well, we prayed, and God brought us a person who thinks like us. And in energy, we have some projects, very simple projects that we have done across the country. And we have piloted in 5 counties. And these are called community power centers, where energy, wind, biogas, generation, cogeneration is working together with solar and biofuel, with battery banks for productive use in those centers, with a digital village where the youth can go and join the rest of the world to do certain things. And we've done it in Nandi, in Himaki, in Kapchurwai. We've done it in Bomet, in Kitoben. We have done it in Siaya, in a place called Uhuru. We have done it in Changara, in Busia. And the last one we've done in Ngando, in Kirinyaga. And they are models. But the problem has been, as we do them as models, because there are several other things that we can talk about models that we have done. The lack of political goodwill, because it's a country that we have come up with a benchmark of finish politics, start politics immediately. But development delays. So I think for us, because of the huge knowledge that we have acquired from God himself, we are supporting some institutions. But the challenge we are having is that, like, for example, when the sector pushed for ban of importation of furniture for public office, we came up with a project on bamboo. So I think we shall be talking about how we can make furniture locally using bamboo because of conversion. And I think on energy, we're doing a lot of briquetting from waste. We're doing a lot of biogas generation. Like, for example, if you go to Naivasha, you'll find, Your Excellency, there is a team that was having 100 tons of waste of baby corn and cabbage as waste. Today, they are producing biogas, and you can package the biogas to use on automotive. So as we talk about the issues of clean energy and all these things, we need to go that route. And Juakali is leading the way. One of the challenges we are having and we want to unlock is institutional synergy. Because there are so many institutions in Kenya, especially the agencies of the government, that listen, they get agitated, they don't want even to involve the Juakali into their system. So you find even their boards, they lack representation of Juakali. Then the common manufacturing facility, which we have been pursuing the chamber to support us, where quality is supposed to be a measure for a Juakali product. When you talk about a wheelbarrow, the whole of East Africa is buying wheelbarrows from Kenya. The whole of all the jikos, and I'm told if you have a kitchen without a Juakali jiko, it's not a complete kitchen. Yes, so all the jikos are made in Kenya. But the quality and the finish. Your Excellency, I know you'll be with us in Kampala, and Excellency, the Deputy President may be with us in Kampala again. We are having a regional exhibition, and Juakali in Kenya is leading the whole region. And the chairman of Musea is here, Mureu, and he's the chairman of Musea, who is supposed to be leading the process in Kampala. So I think we are leading the region, and we want the region to really benefit from us. So
thank you very much, Torian.
Perhaps a final question, Your Excellency. Yesterday you talked very passionately about Kenyans accessing the South African market. Your Minister for Trade talked about the fact that it is smaller businesses that are doing the majority of exports, meaning that, which explains why we are only exporting products worth about $38 million, yet they are exporting, they're sending products here worth $650 million. What word do you have for the business people that are here today, both from the small business sector and the medium sector?
Let me first speak to the issue raised by Juakali. You talked about political goodwill. So, me sitting here, I am a bundle of political goodwill. So at least one issue is out of the way. The second issue is the common user facility, which you have talked about. And you are so right. When we are doing the housing, for example, we said we are going to connect our Jua Kali sector to our TVET institutions, because in TVET we have a lot of equipment. We spend almost 25-30 billion shillings to equip our TVETs. And we are now saying there must be a working formula between the Jua Kali and our TVETs, so that the Jua Kali can leverage on the huge resources and equipment that we have in our Jua Kali to professionalize their work. But if you look at our manifesto, we have said that we are going to work with the Jua Kali, link them up to our TVET institutions, and create a common user facility where we have the most modern of equipments to be shared by different people in the Jua Kali sector, so that we can elevate the quality and the specifications of the products that they produce. So you are spot on, and I want to confirm to you that is a plan we intend to implement. And it's going to cover the textile sector, the leather sector, the wood sector, the metal sector. All those sectors will be covered in our common user facility that we are going to equip, either in every county to begin with, then we will move to the sub-county, and then we will move to the Jua Kali sheds, which can be shared by different Jua Kali players, because it's expensive for one person to buy. But once we put a common user facility under the management of the Jua Kali, they can share in the common user facility for all the equipment that they need to be able to elevate the quality of their products to the correct level. On the item that was mentioned by Terian, yesterday, we not only unlocked matters to do with travel, we also unlocked and eliminated barriers. Number one, we've had a 10-year ban on our meat products accessing the South African market. We have committed ourselves, and yesterday in the evening we got a brief from the ministers concerned, but by December this year, the ban will be lifted so that our products can access the South African market. We cannot sell our tea to South Africa. We have a challenge selling our pineapples. We have a challenge selling our avocados, as was mentioned by this young man. The issue was that we are operating on different phytosanitary requirements. We have said we are going to harmonize our phytosanitary regulations so that by January we can be able to access the South African market as they access our market. That way we can begin to bring down the difference in the trade levels between our two countries. As was said, they are selling to our country $650 million US. We are selling only $40 million to the South African market. And yet, the primary or the premium products that we'll be selling to South Africa have barriers. One of them is tea, and I persuaded the President of South Africa that by January, February next year, we should be able to export our tea to South Africa. And I do that for all the other countries, including our neighbors, and I want to persuade all of us here, whether you are in fintech, whether you are in agro-processing, whether you are in the Jua Kali sector, we must focus our market beyond Kenya. And that is why we should leverage on the East African community, and more importantly, we should leverage on the infrastructure given to us by the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Africa, ladies and gentlemen, is our market for our tea, for our coffee, for our milk, for our fintech, for all the products that produce. We must raise our horizon to the 1.2 billion people in the African continent. And we must target the 2.7 trillion GDP and make some of it Kenyan GDP. And I am ready, I am willing, and the government of Kenya is going to work with each and every one of you in your sectors so that we can scale up. I like the words of Magdalene. She said, her enterprise is scalable and her enterprise can be expanded. You know, I really like that. And that should be the mindset that we have as Kenyans.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very, very much, Your Excellency. I would want to go straight to Esther. And you've listened to His Excellency, and he's demonstrated on how his government will facilitate the private sector. In your view, Esther, what would you want the government or the private sector to do, particularly in value chain and the agro-processing, in terms of sustainability?
First, Your Excellency, as you know, the manufacturing is quite capital intensive to set a manufacturing plant here. And it's also a challenge for the hustlers to be able to access financing. I'm calling myself an hustler manufacturer because I got into manufacturing food production with no food technology, knowledge at all. I am a product of the Kenya Industrial Research Institute. First, some of the challenges that we have is malt licensing. We have to pay so many licenses to be able to set up, plus the fees. At least you need 400,000 to be able to set up a factory in Kenya. I don't know how many startups will be able to afford that. Some of these licenses can be grouped together and it can be made cheaper. Annually, for renewals, we need at least 200,000. That is quite expensive for a startup. Another thing, it's on the taxes. It's like getting a baby and expecting this baby to feed herself in less than a year. So we are requesting for moratoriums or a grace period to be able to get on our feet so that we can be able to pay taxes without default. And another thing, we are also having very good fabricators locally. We also need the fabricators to be empowered financially so that we can be able to access machinery without really spending so much, and they can also be able to give us credit terms. In terms of financing, we would like to see a grace period given to any facilities that is extended to us in terms of loans for us to be able to stabilize before we start paying, and if at least we can be off from 6 months and above, because manufacturing is quite requiring. So these are some of the things, and also sensitizing just the consumers on the Buy Kenya, Build Kenya initiative so that we can also be able to support the products that we manufacture here, because I believe we are competitive in terms of packaging. We've really upped our game in branding, and we are good to compete with the international market. A month ago, I was in Germany, and I looked at what is there. And the products that we are having out there internationally are as good as the products that we are manufacturing here and branding here. So we need support in those areas. Thank you.
Thank you very much. On that note, we'd like to close our interactive session. Our hustlers, thank you so much for sharing your challenges as well as your successes. Yes, Your Excellency.
I think Esther deserves a response.
Yes.
Because she has spoken to the heart of value addition and agro-processing and manufacturing.
Yes.
And it is a big component of how we are going to move our products up the value chain. We cannot continue to sell unprocessed, semi-processed, or poorly processed goods in our market. We must up our game, and we must support people like Esther who venture into adding value to our products for local consumption and even for export. This is a subject we have discussed extensively, and that is the reason why I hired Moses Kuria. Moses Kuria, can you respond to Esther? Come here. Just come to the podium there. Because Esther wants to know how we are going to support them. What is your KCD going to do? What is, how are we?
Thank you, Your Excellency. Esther, I hope you know the level of unemployment that there is in Kenya. So please don't add to it by getting me fired. But because I don't want to get fired, Esther, I want to tell you that first, using our Kenya Industrial Research Development Institute, we are now running up to 50 to 100 clients, SME clients whom we are incubating there. From our Kenya Industrial Estate, we have another 50. We are now going to roll out these incubations to every county. And that is the basis. That is the basis of our common user facilities. I have received already a lot of requests, and people are offering land, and I want to thank governors, Your Excellency. Governor of Elgeyo Marakwet has offered me land. Governor of Laikipia has offered me land. Governor of Nyeri, actually, where on Saturday I was giving out relief food in Kieni, we have agreed on 150 acres of land available from national government, where we'll put up our first pilot common user facility. So I want to tell Esther and all our SME manufacturers, at least you'll have a home. And let me also reiterate to Your Excellency, we don't have a problem of money at all, at all, at all. I've had a discussion with banks. I've had a discussion with the World Bank and other development partners. The problem is what you have alluded to and what President Gatti has alluded to, that the bottom is not organized. We've left our SMEs out there like mushrooms in the world. And what I'm going to do is to work with Esther and all the SME manufacturers, SME exporters, put them together and make them ready to receive money. Because money is one thing, and having an organized architecture that can be able to receive money is another thing. So, Esther, I hope I've convinced you, so you convince my boss. And let me add here, when some counties are giving me land to do common user facilities, other counties are saying they want land, they want to encourage squatting on public land. And that difference, Your Excellency, will start to show. I'm not in a mood to fight, I've fought enough in my life. But you start to see the difference between progressive counties that want to be partner to us and Kenya Kwanza government in developing the manufacturing agenda, the export agenda for the benefit of our people. And counties which make a wrong turn and take us to the past where we were fighting and being antagonistic, you are going to see them start to lag behind others. When that happens, don't blame it on witchcraft. Thank you, Excellency.
Thank you. Thank you, Moses. Just to add, I intentionally decided to have a ministry for SMEs and cooperatives. Because for a very long time, SMEs have been relegated to some department in some corner. And by so doing, sometimes they get forgotten. I now have a minister who wakes up and sleeps SMEs and cooperatives. To do two things, to make sure that SMEs are organized, to make sure that SMEs are made business ready, and to make sure that SMEs are made funding ready, so that we can catapult SMEs to the next level, where we create big corporations out of small SMEs. For the record, Equity Bank, that is telling us today they have $780 billion or something like that, was once upon a time a small SME somewhere in Murang'a. So the small SMEs that you see here today, the outfit run by Esther and all the other small and micro enterprises here, have the capacity to be huge corporations if they get a hand up or a leg up, and if they get the necessary support. And I want to promise you that that is why I am sitting here, to give you assurance that we are going to work with you so that we can grow our SME sector to help us create wealth in our country.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Waziri Kuria, it seems your job is secure.
Yes, Your Excellency, as we close, there is a question that was posed from the floor, and this is because of the issue of climate change. In the world today, you'll find industrialists actually have exhausted their carbon credit. Now, in Kenya today, because of the drought, we are trying to raise funds so that we can support certain areas. What is it that we can be able to do to utilize the open space that we have in this country so that we can be able to leverage on carbon credit?
Precisely, that's why I attended a session in COP27, where we were discussing about how to grow, how to expand, and how to make carbon credit markets much more accessible, simpler, and carbon credit funding, not to fund intermediaries, but to find the actual people who do the real work on the ground. You may want to know that at the moment, 80% of all carbon credit financing end up with intermediaries, auditors, assessors, and the rest of them. The people who bear the brunt and who do the hard work of making sure that our environment is safe get the short end of the stick all the time. So in this particular arrangement, and that is why we were having this session, shortly, we are going to have a law that will govern matters to do with carbon credit, so that to make sure that it is transparent and it is accessible to the people who actually should benefit from that carbon credit regime. So the Ministry of Agriculture and all the other ministries that are related, including forestry, we're going to put it together so that we can deal with the challenge of climate change and unlock financing that can help us mitigate and provide for adaptation mechanisms for the climate change effects that we are suffering as a nation.